One man just became a trillionaire, not a billionaire, a trillionaire. It happened in one day, on a stock exchange, and almost nobody saw it coming this fast. On June 12, 2026, SpaceX started trading on the Nasdaq. Ticker SPCX. Shares opened at $135. By the end of the day, Elon Musk's net worth crossed $1.1 trillion. One stake, one company, $866.5 billion just from his SpaceX shares. This wasn't supposed to happen yet. SpaceX was private for over 20 years. No public shares, no stock ticker, just one man, one rocket company, and a closed door. Today that door is open, and the line to get in is longer than anyone expected. So how did a rocket company become worth more than most countries' entire economies? The answer isn't rockets, not directly. The answer is the internet. From space, it's called Starlink, and it quietly became the most valuable part of this entire company. Starlink alone makes up an estimated 58% of SpaceX's total revenue. Over 7,500 satellites are already in orbit, the largest network ever built. Some reports say that number has now passed 9,800. That's internet coverage almost anywhere on Earth. Deserts, oceans, war zones, mountains. But satellites don't get cheap by themselves. They need rockets, a lot of rockets. SpaceX cut launch costs by roughly 90% using reusable rockets. Other companies throw rockets away after one use. SpaceX flies the same one again and again. That single idea changed the economics of space, and it's the foundation of everything else. So when the IPO numbers started leaking, they didn't feel real. Back in December 2025, reports pointed to an $800 billion valuation. That alone would have made it the most valuable private startup on the planet, bigger than OpenAI. But that number didn't last. It kept climbing. Fast. By early 2026, talk shifted to $1.5 trillion. Then, just before the listing, the real number landed, $1.77 trillion, one of the largest public offerings in history, rivaling the biggest tech companies on Earth. YouTube. For comparison, Saudi Aramco's 2019 listing raised $29 billion. SpaceX aimed to beat that, and this time regular people got a seat at the table, not just big investors. Musk reportedly pushed to give retail investors up to 30% of IPO shares. The cool down. That's 3 times higher than the usual 5 to 10%. The cool down. Why? Because this was never just an investment, it was a cultural moment. Let's talk about the money behind the money. Where does SpaceX actually make its cash? Launch services, government contracts, satellite broadband, and new tech projects. The cool down. In 2024, revenue was around $15 to $16 billion, profit about $8 billion. The cool down. That's a healthy company, profitable, growing, the kind investors love. But then 2025 happened, and the story got more complicated. Revenue grew, past $18.5 billion. Good news. The cool down. But the company posted a loss of nearly $5 billion that same year. The cool down. That loss came largely from integrating new projects, big bets, expensive bets, the cool down growing revenue, bigger losses, and still a $1.77 trillion price tag. How does that work? It works because investors aren't just buying today's numbers, they're buying tomorrow's. 2026 revenue is projected to hit $22 to $24 billion, mostly from Starlink. And that IPO money, earmarked for something huge, space-based data centers, computing power in orbit, cooled by space itself, that's the next bet. Now here's where it gets personal. This IPO didn't just make Musk richer, it made him the first person in human history worth over $1 trillion, not the richest person, the first trillionaire ever in recorded history. Let that sit for a second. One human being, $1 trillion, one day. But not everything in Musk's empire is celebrating. There's a second company in this story, Tesla. And while SpaceX soared, Tesla didn't. Tesla stock dropped about 11% in 2026, while SpaceX hit trillion-dollar headlines. Why? More competition in electric vehicles, delays in self-driving technology, and growing concern that Musk's attention is split too many ways. One man, multiple companies, limited hours in a day. The market is starting to notice. So we have two stories at once, one company exploding upward, another sliding down. It's a case study in how markets value different parts of the same person's empire. Rockets and satellites, exciting, new, untouched by traditional competition. Electric cars, now crowded, competitive, no longer a guaranteed win. This is the part most people miss. An IPO isn't the finish line, it's the starting gun. Before June 12th, SpaceX answered to one person. After June 12th, it answers to millions. Shareholders, quarterly earnings calls, public scrutiny, every single quarter. That's a different kind of pressure than building rockets in a desert. And the risks? They're bigger than most IPOs anyone's seen before. Start with the obvious one, spectrum allocation. Satellites need radio frequencies to work. Spectrum coordination requires constant negotiation with regulators around the world. Every satellite needs a slice of radio frequency, and every country controls its own slice. Launch licensing is just as complicated. Safety reviews, environmental reviews, one bad review, one delayed permit. That's enough to push a launch by months. And SpaceX doesn't operate in a bubble. It operates inside global politics. As a major defense contractor, SpaceX is exposed to shifting geopolitical dynamics. Government contracts can change overnight. New administrations, new priorities, new restrictions. International revenue depends on relationships between governments, relationships that can break. Then there's the supply chain. Rockets need parts. Parts come from somewhere. If a key supplier in one country gets cut off, production stops. Simple as that. Now add another layer. Musk's public persona is, by his own admission, polarizing. Some investors see that as a strength, a brand, a reason to buy. Others see it as a liability. One controversial post, one political statement, markets react, and then there's governance, other business commitments, other companies, other distractions. Tesla, Neuralink, the boring company, XAI. One person, 5 major companies. For decades, that was framed as genius. Now public shareholders get to ask questions about it. Every earnings call, every board meeting. Where is the CEO's attention going? That question didn't exist when SpaceX was private. Now it's permanent. Let's zoom out. Why does any of this actually matter to you? If you don't own SpaceX stock, here's the honest answer: it still matters. Because SpaceX isn't just a company anymore, it's infrastructure. Starlink connects rural towns, disaster zones, ships, planes, military operations. When a company that controls infrastructure goes public, its decisions become everyone's business. Price changes, service changes, coverage changes. They ripple outward. And there's the bigger picture. The commercial space race just got a major new player with public money. Public money means public pressure. Public pressure means faster timelines, bigger bets. SpaceX's new rocket, Starship V3, is central to where this goes next. More launches than any single nation conducts in a year. That's not an exaggeration. That's the current pace. Now imagine that pace funded by billions in fresh IPO capital, the acceleration compounds, Mars colonization. Musk has been open about this being the ultimate goal. It sounds like science fiction, but it's now baked into a publicly traded company's mission statement. Shareholders are no longer just buying satellites and rockets, they're buying a multi-planetary bet. That's unprecedented. No other public company has that as its stated long-term destination. So let's bring this back to day one. What actually happened on the stock itself? First day performance ranked among the strongest for any mega-cap IPO in history. That suggests the $135 opening price, aggressive as it was, still left room to climb. In plain terms, even at a record-breaking valuation, buyers showed up and kept buying. That's a signal. Markets weren't just accepting the price, they were betting it goes higher. But here's what nobody can answer yet. What happens in year 2, year 5? Public companies face quarterly pressure, private companies don't. SpaceX spent 2 decades building without that pressure. That chapter just ended. The next chapter gets written in earnings reports every 90 days in public. Now here's the bigger lesson in all of this. Beyond SpaceX, beyond Musk. This IPO marks something larger. Space is no longer a niche industry. It's now part of mainstream portfolios, retirement funds, index funds, everyday investments. If you have a retirement account, there's a real chance it now includes exposure to rockets and satellites, whether you realized it or not, whether you chose it or not. That's how big this moment is. It quietly entered millions of portfolios in a single day, and it raises a question worth sitting with. What other impossible companies go public next? 20 years ago, a reusable rocket company sounded impossible. Today, it's the biggest IPO ever. What's the next impossible idea sitting in a garage or a desert testing site right now? Because if SpaceX is any indication, it might be bigger and arrive faster than anyone expects. So here's where we land. One company, one IPO, one trillionaire, one day. But underneath the headlines, a story about reusable rockets, satellite internet, and 2 decades of risk. Risk that finally paid off, in public, for everyone to see. Whether you bought a single share or none at all, June 12, 2026 changed something. The line between space company and everyday company just got a lot thin.